So let's go over the specific Java 8. We've done a lot of stuff this morning already. Okay, we've mentioned WebSockets. We haven't covered them in any details. We've talked about WebSockets. We've talked about Lambdas. We've talked about streams. We've talked about JavaFX. We've talked about microservices. We've covered all these different things. So let's just take a step back and have a look at which Java 8 features specifically helped us here. All of the stuff we did, which is JavaFX, is now native in Java 8. So this is the Java 8 UI. So anything we did in JavaFX is possible via the use of Java 8. Okay? The other things we did which were really useful for us in terms of Java 8 is in our stub service, we used Lambdas to define what the business logic was. Okay, so we didn't have to do a lot of copy-paste coding. In things like our leaderboard data, we used streams to manipulate the data that we had, reorder it, limit it, so on and so forth. And of course, well, streams also uses things like method references or even Lambdas for you to tell it what to do on each of these operations. What else used Lambdas? We had another one. Oh, yeah. And we have compute if absent, which is a new method on map since Java 8, which takes a Lambda in order for you to tell it how to create the new object. Okay, so the question is, will the limit impact the sort to some extent? Yes, which is why the sort has to happen before limit. So it is order dependent. If I did the limit first and then sorted it, it would take the first 18 and then you'd sort that 18.
Now, what I'm asking is...
Yeah, but this don't sort everything because you're applying the limit after the sort.
Yeah, so it sorts everything.
But it does not do it step by step.
No, thank you for mentioning that because I meant to mention that. Streams are lazily evaluated. Okay, so when it comes across the dot, it doesn't do this in discrete steps. It doesn't go, okay, get the values. Okay, now I'm going to sort them all. All right, now I'm going to limit them. Now I'm going to do this. Like if you're doing stuff on string, when you do string.append, those are all individual operations that get done separately. With streams, this is all lazily done. So what you're doing is more like a builder pattern. So you tell it what you're going to do when you execute this thing, and then only when you call collect does it figure out the best way of applying those things. Okay, so it'll do everything at the end. And if it can figure out a smart way of saying, actually, you don't need this step, so we won't run it, it won't run that. There are methods on here like distinct. If you have distinct, it has to go through every single thing in there anyway. So there are certain methods on streams where you can't optimize that stuff because it's going to have to go through every single one. But there are certain ways of doing streams, like collect is not a good example because collect will always make sure that everything that came out of the result of that gets returned. But there are different things you could do, like find first instead of doing collect. And that would just return you one value. And so at this point, it wouldn't do the sort and the limit and go through checking every single item. It would just find the first one that met some criteria and just return that first one and finish the execution early. So depending on what terminating method you're using will depend on the performance of your streams. If you're going to collect everything into lists, it has to do everything anyway, so that you can collect all the values into a list. So yes, so we use Lambdas, we use streams, we had an introduction to method references, which is sort of weird, and we use JavaFX. So that was, that's the summary of all the Java 8 stuff that we used in the last hour or so.